Hello everyone. Today we shall see one of the very important properties of the object oriented programming, that is single inheritance, or in general it is inheritance. Single inheritance is one among them. The main concept here is inheritance. Now let us see what is an inheritance. Inheritance is a mechanism of reusing and extending the existing classes without modifying them, thus producing hierarchical relationships between them. What is the meaning of it? See, it's a mechanism of reusing. One of the important properties of the software development is reusing. So you need not develop the existing but reuse it. That is the objective of the software development. But here also, what does it say? It says wherever it is possible, reuse the properties of the classes without any modification, so that you are going to bring an hierarchical relationship between them. So in other words, inheritance is also called, it's a process by which objects of one class acquire the properties of the object of another class. Here, an object of one class is acquiring the properties of objects of other classes. So here, the parent class, or through which the properties are acquired, is called a base class, and which is acquiring the properties from another class, that is called a derived class. So you have base class whose properties are getting reused by derived class. So you can call parent class or a child class, or even you can say superclass or subclass, base class or a parent class or a superclass, or when it comes to derived class, a child class or a derived class or a subclass. These are all the different nomenclatures of the hierarchical classes. Now we have got different types of inheritances. One among them is the most simple inheritance, that is called single inheritance. And we have got one more inheritance, that is called multiple inheritance. And one more inheritance, that is called hierarchical inheritance. Then we have multi-level inheritance. Then we have hybrid inheritance. See, each and every inheritance has its own different relationship. Single inheritance is the most simple form of the inheritance, wherein a child class or a derived class is inheriting some of the properties from only one class, which is called the base class or parent class. So like this, we have got multiple inheritance. Multiple inheritance means I have one derived class which is inheriting different properties from different base classes. So a derived class is inheriting the properties from multiple base classes, that is multiple inheritance. Like this, you have got hierarchical inheritance, wherein we have uh, uh, grandfather, father, and son. So, father is inheriting some property from grandfather, And even same is the case in the multi-level inheritance also. Grandfather is giving some of the properties to the father. Father is giving some of the properties to the son. So this is multi-level inheritance. Similar is the case of the hierarchical inheritance. Coming to hybrid inheritance. Hybrid inheritance is a combination of all sorts of these inheritances. So now we shall see the very basic concept of, that is, single inheritance. So what is a single inheritance? It is a property wherein a derived class, means a class is derived by taking some of the properties from the parent class. Okay, a derived class with only one base class means some of the properties of only one class, that is called a base class, is inherited, and such a kind of inheritance is called single inheritance. So I've already mentioned what is a base class. It is a class whose properties are inherited by another class. So base class is also called a superclass. And we have one more which is called a derived class. So what is a derived class? It is a class which is inheriting some of the properties from the base class or base classes. Now, how are you going to define a derived class? How are you going to define a base class? Let us look into. See, there is no change in defining a base class. Okay? There is no change in defining a base class. But when it comes to define, when you are defining a derived class, you have to use class, name of the class, colon, visibility, mode with the base class. So class, derived class name, I can use, say, class volume public area. If I say class volume public area, here in this example, volume is considered to be a derived class which is inheriting some of the properties of area, where area is called a base class and the derived class is publicly inheriting the area, the class area. So visibility mode will say either the derived class is getting the properties of the base class in private mode or in protected mode or in public mode. So now my discussion is limited only to single inheritance as well as to the example given. So here I don't want to elaborate the different possibilities of the visibility mode, conditions put for the visibility mode and all those details. So these are all theoretical aspects. So we can have a separate discussion when we discuss the theory part of it. Now, as I mentioned, for example, I define a father and I define a son, where father is a base class, son is a derived class. How do you come to know? See, class father, whereas class son, public father, class derived class name. What is the derived class name here? Son, colon, visibility mode. What is the visibility mode? Public. Then it is a base class name. So what is the base class name here? Father. So father is a base class. Son is a derived class which is inheriting the properties of the base class within the public mode. Okay. So now here there are parameters like name, age, then public. So these are all the properties which are getting shared by the sun. Along with that, we have the two more data types which are limited only to the sun. Remember, company and salary are visible only to the objects which are defined under class sun. Suppose if you define an object under class father, company as well as salary will not be visible, will not be a member of any object which is of type father. Company and salary are the data members of only objects created under sun, which is a derived class of the base class father. Suppose if I derive the sun, if I create an object of sun, the properties of sun include caste, boys, girls, these two functions in addition to these two data type with these two functions. These are all the accessible data elements as well as the functions when an object is defined for a class sum. But if at all you define an object for a class father, then name, age, caste, boys, girls with the two functions are only accessible. These are not accessible. Very important point to note here. Now, moving on to an example. See, here an example is given wherein we are supposed to create a class called rectangle with length and breadth and area, and we have to create one more class which is called cuboid, which is inheriting the rectangle and has additional members as height and volume. So here you are supposed to use the single inheritance property. So, while analyzing the problem, you'll come to know that there are two classes. What are the two classes? First one is a rectangle and second one is a cuboid. So, rectangle is a base class having length, breadth and area 1 as the elements. L, B and area 1 as the elements of the class called rectangle, which is considered to be a base class. Very important to note. Now I am creating another class that is called a derived class called cuboid with the additional data members which are limited only to cuboid, but it cannot be accessed by rectangle. They are h, height and area 2. But the cuboid is inheriting the base class rectangle publicly. That means the properties of the base class are shared with the cuboid. So that means for any object created under a class cuboid, your L is available, B is available, area 1 is available, H is available, area 2 is available. So that is the concept of inheritance. Okay, that is the concept of inheritance. So now, after that, what you are supposed to do? Create an object of class cuboid and use the public functions of rectangle to find out the area using length and breadth. Use the public function of cuboid to read h, then find out the cube. So this is a procedure. I repeat, You create a class which is called a base class called rectangle with the elements L, B and area 1. Then create one more class which is called a derived class, which is inheriting the base class, that is rectangle, publicly. So it is a public inheritance. And define the data members inside the derived class called H and area 2. Afterwards, create an object under class cuboid. Use the public function of rectangle, which is a base class, to find out the area using length and breadth. And afterwards, read the height to find the cube. So, for finding out the area, you are using the base class. Then, to find out the volume, you are using the derived class. So, this is the logic. Let's look at the program. So what is called here? Step 1. Create a base class called rectangle with the float L, B and area 1. I am doing the same thing. Create a class called rectangle with the L, B, area 1 as a member. Then I am calling get data, put data, rectangle area, R area. So these are the functions which are associated. So step 1 is done. I've created a base class called rectangle with the data element LB and area 1 and associated functions. This is to read the value for L and B. This is to calculate the area 1 and this is to display the value. So 3 functions are declared and defined. Similarly, what is the next one? Step 2, create a derived class called cuboid, which is inheriting the base class rectangle publicly. That means I am supposed to define a class called cuboid, which is inheriting the class rectangle publicly. Class cuboid public rectangle means cuboid is going to be a derived class which is inheriting rectangle in public mode. In addition to that, it is defining 2 more data elements. What are they? Height and area 2. Height and area 2. Now, I'll come to public, wherein I'm using some functions. What are the functions? Get data C to read the height. Put data C to give the volume or to display the volume. Float C area 2 to find out the volume. So R area is used to find out the area, whereas C area is to find out the volume. Now, let me read the value for L and B using rectangle get data. It's as usual. Enter the length, read L, enter the breadth, read B. So using get data, void rectangle, scope resolution operator, get data. I am reading L as well as I am reading B, length and breadth. So this much is in this slide. I am reading I am defining the base class, I am defining the derived class, I am reading the value for the base class. Similarly, I am displaying the value for the base class. Length as L, breadth as B, area as R area. So what is R area? It is a function. The moment this is getting executed, control comes to here to find out R area. What is R area? Area 1 is equal to L into B. So return area 1. So the value area 1 will go to here to give the area. So now here we have defined 3 functions. Get data to read the value for L and B. Put data to display the value, and R area to find out the area of a rectangle. Now, very important point is cuboid. So cuboid get data C. See, in case of cuboid, L is already read, where using our rectangle. B is already read, using how? Using rectangle. Now, you have to read the height. So, how do you do it? By executing get data C. So, if you look at here, it's a public function defined inside a derived class. That is get data C. So, using get data C, you read the value of height. Using put data C, use height is h. The volume is, it should be volume, not area, is C area. What is C area? It is a function. C area is a function. Now, here, how am I using the inheritance? So, when I define C area, area 2 is equal to R area. What is R area? R area is a function which is defined here to find the area of a rectangle. Look at here. R area is a public function defined inside the base class which will multiply L and B. What are L and B? L and B are the data elements of the base class. Now, who is touching that? Here, cuboid. C area. Cuboid, C area is touching that. What is cuboid? Cuboid is a derived class. So, now here, R area is a function which is defined in the base class which is multiplied by h. H is a private member of the cuboid. So, now this is multiplied with the function R area. R area is this function to execute, which is a function defined in the base class. So here we find the inheritance. Here we find the inheritance where H is a data member of the base class, derived class. R area is a public function of the base class which in turn read the value of or calculate the value of L and to P. So ultimately your area 2 is L into B into H, which is the volume. So now going to the main program, see I have defined an object. C is an object of class cuboid. Means what? C is an object of derived class which uses C dot get data. See, get data is a function belonging to base class. If I say C is an object of type cuboid which can read the value for L and B through C dot get data and C dot put data. So what is put data? It's also a function of a base class. Object is an object of derived class, but functions are of base class. Get data as well as put data. So now using these two functions, I am inheriting the properties of the base data. Now here also C dot get data C. So get data C will read the value of height additional. So put data C will display L into B into H, because here also a function is used to revoke the function of the base class which is multiplied later by H. So now here it's very clear that the object created in the derived class takes the elements of the base class, uses the public functions of the base class in addition to the members which are declared inside this derived class. So it doesn't require, see here for the class called cuboid, you don't require redefinition of L B area 1. So wherever there is a need of L B area 1, it can inherit from the base class. So this is what is a concept of single inheritance. So this is the output wherein you are reading length and breadth using a base class. Length and breadth is got. Area you are finding using a base class. Here you are reading the height using a derived class. Then you are finding out the area. It's not an area, it's a volume. By multiplying this with the height, 120 into 20. So it becomes 2400 as an output. So this is how you are executing or you are uh, writing a simple inheritance program. Of course, there are very complicated levels of inheritance programs, multi-level, hierarchical, multiple, different modes are also there. Here we have taken a simple mode, that is a public mode, but there are even protected mode is also there. There is even private mode is also there. So each and every mode has got its own rules and regulations. So that has to be followed. But a very simple method of explaining a single inheritance or an inheritance is by means of explaining single inheritance, and this could be a classical example for the single inheritance, right? Thank you.